Hello friends, welcome back to Max's Cards and Dice Dugout. This is episode number 31, and we're returning to Downey Games Fast Action Racing in the 1991 Stock Car Project, race number 3, which took place at Rockingham. It was the Goodwrench 500, March 3rd, 1991. The winner of that race was Kyle Petty. So before we get to the actual race, few things I need to talk about. There was some discussion on the in the comments for the Facebook video. Listen to me. The YouTube video for race number 2 that I had, I wasn't doing the challenges correctly, and I have to certainly agree there were way too many lap drivers. I thought, to be like a realistic race, and that's because the rules are a little bit contradictory. They'll be the rule will be stated one way in the rule, and then in the example, it's another way. I had mentioned before, I just think the rules need to be re-edited. So going forward, what I'm going to do, and this is just on challenges, this does not apply to mechanical checks or contact checks, anything like that. This is just like applying to race challenges. If the difference in rating is not greater than 5, it's just a failed check. The driver's not lapped. If it's 6 or greater, the driver is automatically lapped. Okay, so that's what we're going to do going forward, and I think I'll get a little bit more realistic results that way. So that's that. Now, before we get to setting up the grid for this race, let's take a quick look at the standings after race 2. Kyle Petty's in first place with 75 points. 2 top 5 finishes and 1 win already. Ernie Irvan 7 points behind, and rounding out the top 5, we got Rick Mast, Harry Gant, Bill Elliott. That's it for the top 5 racers and where we stand right now. Okay, so this is, as I stated, Rockingham race number 3 from the 1991 Stock Car or NASCAR season. Remember, there's a lot of paperwork involved in this race, so please bear with me. First thing we're going to do is shuffle up the driver cards and get them distributed out here on the grid. Give them a bit of a shuffle and a cut, and then we'll put them out. All right, so here we go. Starting down here, we have Stanley Smith, Rick Wilson, Jimmy Spencer, Ted Musgrave, Joe Rootman, Brett Bodine, Alan Kowicki, Kyle Petty, current leader, Derek Cope, Hutch Strickland, Ernie Irvan, Rick Mast, Mickey Gibbs, Jeff Bodine, Larry Pearson, Darrell Waltrip, Ken Schrader, winner of the last race, Mark Martin. Now filling out the rest of the grid, Michael Waltrip, Dale Earnhardt, Jimmy Means, Dave Marcus, Sterling Marlin, Lake Speed, Richard Petty, Terry Labonte, Bobby Hamilton, 1991 Rookie of the Year, I believe, Chad Little, Dale Jarrett, Bobby Hillin Jr., Bill Elliott, Harry Gant, Rusty Wallace, Ricky Rudd, Morgan Shepherd, and Davey Allison. Okay, so the grid is set. And remember, this grid is not a representation of position on the track. And these various grooves that are on this grid only come into play really at the end of the race when we are determining finishing positions. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is roll to see who the pole sitter is. Red and white dice, we're going to read the red die first. And we have a 56. So we're going to search for 56 here. And let's see, that's a 53. Kyle Petty, who I believe not only won the Rockingham race, but was also the pole sitter and led the most laps. How about that? So we'll put Kyle Petty down as the pole sitter. Now, another thing I should mention, there are some statistics that can be calculated using this game, fast action racing. I do not do that. You can take this number here, this 7.36, added to the track speed, and come up with a pole sitter speed. I'm not recording all of those stats, nor am I recording how many laps each driver led. I'm really just concerned with who led the most laps and who led any lap, you know, to get bonus points in the standings. But there is a lot of statistics you can calculate for this game if you so desire. So, I've got to find my green die because I didn't get it out. I use that as a marker, so we'll mark Kyle Petty as the current pole sitter, so he's going to face a challenge right off the bat here. And the way we do that, red and white die, and we just look at the numbers here on the grid. So we have a 34. 34 is Dale Jarrett. Okay, and we're going to look at their race rating, which is the number in green. Okay, so here's the challenge. So Kyle Petty brings them out, and Dale Jarrett's going to challenge early in the race here for the lead. So let me just write this down. Okay. Kyle Petty's an 11. Dale Jarrett's a 10. It's a differential of -1. -1 tells us he needs an 8 to 12 to take the lead. We'll roll the black die for this. And he rolls a 6, so that's a fail. And utilizing these new rules I'm using, he is not lapped. He's just failed the challenge. So he rolls a 6, was a fail. And Kyle Petty remains race leader. Okay, now we're going to have our first phase of mechanical checks. And we're going to pick a random driver. Could be the leader, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the leader. A random driver and the 4 adjacent drivers, and they are going to conduct mechanical checks to see if there was any mechanical failures or something that might have caused them to go behind the wall for a while. And we roll a 41, and that's Dale Earnhardt. So it'll be Dale Earnhardt. And we're going to utilize the priority rules. 12 o'clock is Jimmy Spencer. Three o'clock is Joe Rootman. 6 o'clock is Rick Wilson. And for 9 o'clock, we wrap around the board and it's Ken Schrader. Okay, so we'll roll the black die in this, and we're going up against the red mechanical rating. If the die roll is equal to that rating, the driver is lapped, and he'll be down several laps and get a red lap marker. If it's greater than his rating, he's forced to retire. Now, in this track, there is no change, as you can see here. I think you can see that. No change to the mechanical ratings. There is a +1 to contact, which means contact is a little bit less likely at this track than some others. Okay, so we're going to check Dale Earnhardt first. We're looking at the red rating. His is a 9. He rolls a 5. So he is good. So he passes. 5 pass. Jimmy Spencer. Jimmy Spencer is an X, which means he automatically fails. And he has to retire from the race. Anytime an X shows up, the driver's forced to, it's an automatic failure, and in this case, he's forced to retire. So unfortunately, Jimmy Spencer, pride of Berwick, PA, he's out of the race early. So that is an X and a fail. And he did not finish. Okay, now Joe Rootman. Joe Rootman is an 11. He rolls an 8, so he passes. Rick Wilson is a 7. And he rolls a 10. He's forced to retire as well. And finally, Ken Schrader. Ken Schrader over here, he is an 8. He rolls a 10 and he's forced to retire. So due to some mechanical issues, we've lost 3 drivers to the race so far. Kyle Petty remains the leader. And he's now going to face another challenge. All right, so back to the red and white die. And we roll a 34. 34 is Dale Jarrett again. Okay, Jarrett is an 8. Or excuse me, Jarrett's a 10. Kyle Petty's an 11. It's a -1. Dale Jarrett needs an 8 to 12. He rolls a 9 and fails again. He rolls a 9, fails, and Kyle Petty is still in the lead. All right, now we're going to have a phase of green flag racing. We're going to choose a random driver, the 4 adjacent, and they'll be going up against the leader. The leader cannot be lapped in this phase. He can only fail a challenge, and we could have a new leader. All right, so we're going to choose a random driver. We have that was a 2 that I just flipped over. We have a 22. It's Ted Musgrave. All right, so it's Ted Musgrave. All right, Ted Musgrave. Sterling Marlin's at 12 o'clock. Richard Petty is at 3 o'clock. Dave Marcus at 6. And Michael Waltrip at 9. Okay, so we're looking at the green race ratings, and they're all going to go up against the current leader, Kyle Petty. So first up is Ted Musgrave. He's an 8. Kyle Petty's an 11. That's a -3. He needs a 10 to 12. He rolls a 9 and fails. So Musgrave fails. He remains on the lead lap. Next up is Sterling Marlin. Sterling Marlin's an 11. Kyle Petty's an 11. That's a 0. He needs a 7 to 12. And he rolls a 9, so we have a new race leader. He rolls a 9, passes, and Sterling Marlin is the new race leader here at Rockingham. So we'll move that over to him, and the remaining challenges will go up against him in this phase. Okay, next is Richard Petty. He's an 8. Sterling Marlin is an 11. It's a -3. He needs a 10 to 12. He rolls a 6 and fails. And Sterling Marlin remains the leader. Next up, Dave Marcus is a 6, an 11. That's -5. That's an automatic failure, but he is not lapped. He is only -5. That's a failure. Sterling Marlin still remains the leader. Lastly, it's Michael Waltrip. Michael Waltrip is an 11. Sterling Marlin is an 11. That's a difference of 0. So Michael Waltrip needs a 7 to 11 to become the new race leader. Whoops, sorry about that. I hit the camera. This new camera mount that's not supposed to shake for me. Sorry about that. Okay, he rolls a 3 and fails. And Sterling Marlin remains the race leader. Now we go into a phase of green flag pit stops. And what we do again is we choose a random driver and 4 adjacent drivers, and we look at the pit crew rating, which is the blue number. If the die roll is lower or equal to, it's good. If it's higher, during the green flag pit crew, green flag pit phase, we look at the blue pit crew number and select a random driver and 4 adjacent. They go up against the race leader, and same thing, this is, representative of a series of green flag pit stops where you can have several different leaders change as they all pit on different laps. So that's basically what we're representing here. Once again, greater than -5, the driver becomes lapped. So the first thing we need to do is determine the random driver. And we have a 13. That's Alan Kulwicki. So it's Kulwicki. 12 o'clock. Whoops, sorry, Richard Petty. 3 o'clock, Chad Little. 6 o'clock, we go around to the top, and it's Bobby Hamilton. And 9 o'clock is Dave Marcus. Okay, so we're looking at the pit crew rating. They're going up against the leader, Sterling Marlin. Okay, so Sterling Marlin's an 8. Alan Kulwicki is an 8. That's a 0. So he needs a 7 to 12. He rolls a 4 and fails. And Sterling Marlin remains the race leader. Next up is Richard Petty. Richard Petty's an 8. Sterling Marlin's an 8. Another 0. 7 to 12. He rolls a 3 and fails. And Sterling Marlin still remains the leader. Okay, next up, Chad Little. He's a 7. Sterling Marlin's an 8. That's a -1. He needs an 8 to 12. He rolls a 4 and fails. And Sterling Marlin is still the race leader. Next is Bobby Hamilton. Bobby Hamilton's an 8. Marlin's an 8. It's a 0. 7 to 12. He rolls a 10, and we have a new race leader in Bobby Hamilton. He passes the check, and he is the new race leader. Okay, so we'll move the marker up to Bobby Hamilton. And this final check is Dave Marcus. He's a 7. It's going up against Bobby Hamilton, who's an 8. That's a -1. So he needs an 8 to 12. He rolls a 6 and fails. And Bobby Hamilton remains the race leader. All right, now we go into a penalty phase. Here is where the officials are checking to see if there was any infractions during the pit stops. We once again will use the blue pit crew number, and it's a random driver and 4 adjacents. This may or may not include the leader, but they're going to roll against their pit crew number. If the die is lower than equal, it's good. If the die, if the die roll is higher than their pit crew rating, they're forced to come in for a stop and go, and they go down a lap. Okay, so we'll determine our random drivers for this. We have a 42, it's Joe Rootman. And 4 adjacent drivers are Lake Speed at 12. Terry Labonte at 3. Sterling Marlin at 6. And Dale Earnhardt at 9 o'clock. All right. So we're going to look at Joe Rootman's pit crew rating. It's an 8. He needs an 8 or less. He rolls a 5. He's good. So Rootman rolls a 5. Passes. Lake Speed. Lake Speed is a 6. He needs a 6 or less. He rolls a 6. Just passes. He's good. Next is Terry Labonte. He's a 7. Needs a 7 or less. He rolls an 11. So he had some sort of infraction and is forced to come in for a stop and go. He gets a green lap marker. All right, now, had any of these drivers been drivers with a yellow or red lap marker on them, they would automatically be forced to retire from this phase. They would have gotten a black flag. Okay, anyway, so Terry Labonte fails. Let me write that down. And he's lapped. Okay, next is Sterling Marlin. He's an 8. He rolls a 6. He's good. Passes. And lastly is Dale Earnhardt. He's a 10. And he rolls a 12. Oh boy. Dale Earnhardt has not been having good luck so far this NASCAR season. And he was the points champion in 1991, but he's lapped. He failed his check for a penalty. He's forced to come in for a stop and go. He's lapped. And Bobby Hamilton remains the race leader. He's going to face another challenge. Now, green lap drivers can be part of a challenge. If they would win that challenge, they would get their lap back. So let's determine who is his challenger for this phase. It's a 51. There is no one there. So I'm going to roll again. 45. It's Harry Gant. So Harry Gant's going to challenge for the lead. Harry Gant's an 11. Bobby Hamilton's a 10. Harry Gant is challenging at a +1. He needs a 6 to 12. He gets a 7. So we have a new race leader in Harry Gant. Harry Gant is the race leader. And this part of the race, it's actually back-to-back challenges. All right, so we're going to determine, move this over to Harry Gant, and we're going to determine who his challenge is against. It's a 33, Kyle Petty. Kyle Petty trying to get the lead back again. All right, Kyle Petty is an 11. Harry Gant is an 11. That's a 0. 7 to 12. Kyle Petty's successful. He rolls snake eyes and fails. And Harry Gant remains the leader. All right, now we're going to go through the contact phase where we're going to check to see if there was any contact. We do a random driver and 4 adjacent. And we're going to look at the yellow contact avoidance rating. So the random driver is a 43. It's Terry Labonte. All right. So it's Terry Labonte. Derek Cope is at 12 o'clock. Ernie Irvin is at 3 o'clock. Kyle Petty at 6. And Joe Rootman at 9. Okay, so if the die roll is lower than the contact rating, the driver is safe. If the die roll is equal to the contact rating, he's going to be involved in a minor accident and get a yellow lap marker. So he'll be down several laps. If it's greater than his contact rating, he's forced to retire. Now, here at Rockingham, they get a +1. So, for example, Kyle Petty's 6 turns into a 7. All right. But the first driver we're going to check is Terry Labonte, and he's a 9. So that becomes a 10. All right. So he needs to be lower than that. And he rolls an 11. So he's involved in some contact. Terry Labonte, where are you, Terry? Okay, now he was already lapped. So he's just going to be down several laps now. So we'll take away his green lap marker. If I can pick it up. And Terry Labonte fails, and he's down several laps. He's involved in some contact. So he's a fail. Yellow lap marker. Okay, Derek Cope. Derek Cope is a 5. That 5 becomes a 6. Oh, wait a minute here. The die roll was greater than his contact rating. I apologize on that. Terry Labonte's forced to retire. He's out of the race. Sorry about that, folks. All right. So let me adjust my worksheet here. He's DNF. All right, Derek Cope. Derek Cope is a 5. That becomes a 6. He needs less than a 6. He rolls a 9, and he's also forced to retire and involved in the same accident. Derek Cope fails. Did not finish. All right, Ernie Irvin is a 6. That becomes a 7. He rolls an 8, and he's forced to retire. Failed. Did not finish. Ernie Irvin out of this race. All right. Kyle Petty. Kyle Petty is a 6. That becomes a 7. He rolls a 7. He's equal. So he remains in the race, but has to get some repairs done, and he's down several laps now. All right. And lastly, in this phase, is Joe Rootman. Joe Rootman is a 9. That makes him a 10. He rolls a 4, and he's successful. So Kyle Petty failed. Yellow lap. Joe Rootman passed. And Harry Gant remains the race leader. Okay, now we're going to have some pit stops under caution. Now, the only difference between this and the green flag pit stops is that we do not have a race leader after every challenge. It's just one race leader at the end of this, okay? So the way we do this, random driver for adjacent, they're going to go up against the leader, Harry Gant, and we're going to look at the blue pit crew rating. All right, so let's determine our random driver first, and that's a 24. It's Hut Strickland. So we got Strickland, sorry. 12 o'clock, Dale Jarrett. 3 o'clock's Bill Elliott. 6 o'clock is Chad Little. And 9 o'clock is Richard Petty. Okay, so we're going to look at the blue pit crew rating. Okay, and what we need is going up against the leader, and we use the quality pass matrix here. All right, so our first challenge is coming from Hut Strickland. Hut Strickland is an 8. Harry Gant is a 9. That's a -1. He rolls a 6 and a -1. He needs an 8 to 12, so that's a fail. Hut Strickland fails. Next is Dale Jarrett. He's a 7. Harry Gant's a 9. That's a -2. He needs a 9 to 12. He rolls a 4 and fails. Bill Elliott, he's up next. Bill Elliott is an 8. Harry Gant is a 9. That's a -1. He needs an 8 to 12. He rolls a 9. So he's the new race leader. Pass. And leader. So these remaining challenges will come up against Bill Elliott. Next one is Chad Little. He's a 7. Elliott's an 8. It's a -1. He needs an 8 to 12. He rolls a 3, so that's a fail. Richard Petty. And Richard Petty is an 8. Bill Elliott's an 8. It's a 0. He needs a 7 to 12. And he rolls a 6 and fails. And Bill Elliott, after the pit stops under caution, becomes the new race leader, and he will face a challenge. This challenge comes from 36. That's Morgan Shepherd. All right, Morgan Shepherd is an 11. Bill Elliott's an 11. That's a 0. On a 7 to 12, Morgan Shepherd becomes the new race leader. He rolls a 9 and is successful. Pass. And Shepherd is the new race leader. So we'll move this over to Morgan Shepherd. And now we're going to determine whether or not we have any mechanical checks. So for this track, we're into the what is called the closing laps action. So we're going to use the last highlight event table, and we're going to check mechanical. We roll a 3. There is no mechanical. It had to be an 8 to 12, so that's a no. So Morgan Shepherd, next phase is for him to face a challenge. So we'll determine a random driver, and that's an 11. Stanley Smith. Stanley Smith will challenge race leader Morgan Shepherd. Stanley Smith is a 2, Morgan Shepherd is an 11. That's a -9. Automatic failure, and he is lapped. Fail. Lapped. And Morgan Shepherd remains the race leader. Okay, now we're going to check to see if there was any more contact. And once again, we look at the last highlight event table. Contact at Rockingham, it's an 8 to 12. We roll a 7, so there's no contact. No. So we drop all the way down to the next phase. Morgan Shepherd remains the race leader. Now we're going to check for pit crews under caution. Well, there hasn't been a caution because there was no contact, so that phase is eliminated. And now Morgan Shepherd faces another challenge. Race is winding down. That is a 1-2. It's going to be Dave Marcus. All right, Dave Marcus is a 6. Morgan Shepherd is an 11. That's a -5 automatic failure. And Morgan Shepherd remains the race leader. All right, now we're going to check if there is any pit crew adjustments here at the end. And here at Rockingham, it's a 9 to 12. We roll an 8, so that's a no. And Morgan Shepherd is still your race leader. All right, now last check is any last green flag racing here where there'll be another challenge on an 8 to 12. That'll happen. We roll a 6, and that does not happen as well. So we are into the final challenge. All right, final challenge. We're going to select a random driver, and we'll look at the, we'll use the rules of priority, and whichever is the highest rated driver, utilizing those rules of priority, looking at the green number, will present a final challenge to Morgan Shepherd. These cannot be lapped drivers. Okay, we have a 6-2. It's Brett Bodine. All right, so Brett Bodine is a 9. His 12 o'clock is Dave Marcus. He's a 6, so it's still Brett Bodine. His 3 o'clock is Bobby Hamilton. He's a 10. Lake Speed at 6 o'clock is a 6, and Jimmy Means is a 2. So this final challenge is going to come from Bobby Hamilton. Okay, Bobby Hamilton is a 10. Morgan Shepherd is an 11. They're coming down to the final stretch here. That's a -1. On an 8 to 12, Bobby Hamilton passes Morgan Shepherd and wins the race. Anything else, Morgan Shepherd holds him off. And he rolls a 7. And this final challenge by Bobby Hamilton is a fail. And your race winner here at Rockingham, the Goodwrench 500, race number 3 of the 1991 NASCAR season, is Morgan Shepherd. Congratulations to Morgan. Now we're going to determine the finishing order. All right, so Morgan Shepherd, of course, is first. We'll put that there because we need that later. The racer or the driver who failed the final challenge, Bobby Hamilton, he's second. Now, any other drivers who were eligible for that challenge. And it was Brett Bodine. We use the rules of priority, and highest drivers are the next to finish. Okay, so Brett Bodine, his 12 o'clock is Dave Marcus. His 3 o'clock is already gone. 6, 2. So next is Brett Bodine with a 9. His 12 o'clock is Dave Marcus. He's next. Then Lake Speed. And then Jimmy Means. Nice finish for Jimmy Means. All right. So now we're going to look at the groove, and that is what they call the bottom groove that Morgan Shepherd was in. And we're going to go clockwise from the race winner, and the highest rated drivers who are not lapped will be your next finisher. So we go right to Darrell Waltrip. He's an 11. Ricky Rudd's an 11. Alan Kulwicki. Michael Waltrip. Dale Earnhardt's lapped. Rusty Wallace is also an 11. And Mark Martin. And Davey Allison. All right, so we did the 11s. Let's see if there's any 10s. There are not. Any 9s. Rick Mast. He's next. 8s. Be Mickey Gibbs. Chad Little. And that's it. Okay, we have lap drivers remaining. Now we go into the next groove. It's starting directly over from the race leader. We go clockwise. So it's Jeff Bodine, Bill Elliott, they're both 11s, so is Hutch Strickland, Sterling Marlin, and Harry Gant. Now remember, we're looking from here, so now we go for 10s in this groove. 10s be Bobby Hillin Jr., 9, Joe Rootman, 8, Richard Petty, and Ted Musgrave. And the last driver in that groove is Larry Pearson. All right, so now we go into the upper groove. And the only driver in that top groove who's not lapped is Dale Jarrett. So we have Dale Jarrett. Now we go back out to the groove that the race winner was on, and we look at the lap drivers by order of race rating. And it's Dale Earnhardt, followed by Stanley Smith. And the current leader, at least, well, I don't think he's going to be the leader anymore, is Kyle Petty. Then we take the drivers who were involved in contact or forced to retire for a mechanical issue, and we have our grid. So we'll just give you the top 10. That's Morgan Shepherd, Bobby Hamilton, Brett Bodine, Dave Marcus, Lake Speed, Jimmy Means, Darrell Waltrip, Ricky Rudd, Alan Kulwicki, and Michael Waltrip. So there you go. There are your top 10 finishers for race number 3 at Rockingham. Took place on March 3rd, 1991. That's going to do it for this episode of Max's Cards and Dice Dugout. Thanks for hanging out, and I appreciate it if you're a subscriber. If not, please consider doing so. That's going to do it. Until next time, take care.